I think all of us are concerned about the dark stuff that happens on the internet, and in particular, what that is doing to a generation of young people who are growing up on the internet. And yes, social media, that's pretty nasty, but the internet generally can be a dark place, and various jurisdictions around the world have been wrestling with. So what can we do about this? Whose responsibility is it to keep kids safe? The Aussies said, well, it's just simple. We'll just ban under 16-year-olds from being on social media. And the New Zealand governments and officials been looking jealously across the Tasman thinking, well, that sounds like a brilliant idea. Maybe we should do that as well. Having said that, it's an advantage to be slightly downstream from the Aussies' social media experiment. It seems things aren't working, well, quite according to plan. Joining me on the program now from Pillar, Civil Liberties Group Protecting Individual Life, Liberty and Rights, Nick Hahn. Nick, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thank you.
So I was a bit sceptical. Some would say cynical. I'm going with sceptical on this, that the Aussie plan for keeping kids safe on social media was ever going to work. Turns out that Aussie teenagers are brighter than anyone anticipated. And, well, most of them are still on social media despite the ban. In fact, they've done some research recently. What's the overview, Nick?
Well, basically, it's confirmed what the skeptics said would happen, and that is that teenagers are very resourceful, and when there's a will, there's a way, and they will find their way around a ban, and they will find their way around restrictions, and there are all sorts of things that haven't come as a surprise to a lot of us. That there are tools out there, there are VPNs, there are various ways in which you can cheat the system to get around the age verification, systems that have been put in place by social media companies. Now, the social media companies said that they would do their best, and actually, if you look at what they have tried to put in place, it's a pretty robust series of measures, of preventative sort of systems. But the truth is that they're not all powerful, these companies,
Yep.
despite what people say. Yes, they've got powerful algorithms. There's no doubt about that. But to actually authenticate and verify who is using the internet opens up a whole lot of other problems. So, the teens in Australia, they're already proving now that this doesn't work to
Yep.
put a ban in place. And of course, those behind the ban are saying, oh, well, we just need more powers. We need more measures that we
Yep.
can now
Let's
introduce
ban
so we can be
VPNs,
more effective.
for example. That was kicked around at Cabinet for, at least 24 hours. Let's ban VPNs. That seems like a good idea. We'll go tougher than the
Yeah,
Aussies. We'll make it work.
there's some dispute as to whether it really was, but
Yeah.
it sounds I think it very clearly has been mooted. It's been put out there, and so what we know is that all of these things were predicted by people who actually do understand this technology,
Yep.
and a lot of well-meaning parents, and I understand it as a parent myself, they had this impulse, this desire, intuitively to try and protect their kids,
Yep.
and I get that. But the fact is, look, with my own kids, I've got a daughter who's nearly teenager now, and we've had to navigate this question. How do we allow her to be somewhat independent and become more independent as she's getting older, go out and do things, where we're not always there to supervise? Do we have a way of being able to keep in touch, but also at the same time, how can we manage this process? And so, look, smartphones, that's also been suggested that we ban those.
Yeah.
That's a recent one. Even David Seymour, who's a libertarian, floated the idea at a talk he was giving. The truth is, though, again, the question comes back to who enforces this kind of thing.
Yep.
Because if teenagers can get around the tech, and we know that they now can, and we predicted they would, then who enforces the smartphone ban? Who enforces the social media ban? It's not enough to go, oh, the tech companies. It's really a common sense issue, which if parents take the time to think about the steps they can put in place
Yep.
to best regulate or at times prevent their kids from using any of this tech, then we can get a practical solution to the kinds of problems and concerns that parents do have. And we're not at Pillar, we're not in any way dismissing those concerns. We
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But in the end, why are we trying to get the government to stand behind us and say to our kids, you better do what your parents say?
Yeah.
That says, more about a lack of parental authority and meaningful measures taken by parents where we're being proactive, And so, I think that parents have got to get pretty serious actually about in their own household
Yeah.
how they go about this process instead of just haphazardly blundering into the situation when there have been warnings for some years now
Mm.
that, completely unregulated use of social media, smartphones will become a problem. It's been in front of us. We've watched teens who are so obsessed with their phones, they're addicted, they can't get off them.
Yeah.
But there are practical steps parents can take. And I don't know why there is this sort of throwing their hands up in the air kind of attitude and
Yeah.
saying, well, I need the government to back me up here. I need
Mm.
them to tell my kids, or I can at
Yeah.
least point to
Yeah.
the government and say, look, the government said no. Um, that just is outsourcing the problem that
Yeah.
should be dealt with in the home.
And I'm not sure the parents aren't necessarily doing everything that the government tells them to do either, but there's a conversation for another point. I just want to do the contrast between the social media companies, because actually some progress on here, and in terms of social responsibility, at least using the algorithms to try and protect children rather than using the algorithms to mine their data and make them a product. I mean, that is a move in a positive direction. However, parents as the first defence for children online, how practical is this? Because the experts are quick to go, oh, no, the parents don't have the training. The parents don't have the technology. The parents don't have the authority that we, the government or the experts or the technocrats have. But actually, parents have more influence on the lives of their teenagers than even perhaps the teenagers are prepared to recognise.
Yeah, look, there are, I mean, I could give, a simple tech lesson on what you can do in order to best sort of monitor your child's use of their phone or device.
Yeah.
But there is lots of, information actually available out there. There's tons of it. And there are courses and workshops you can go to as a parent. You talk to your local school and
Yeah.
they will say, oh, well, we've got these resources, these people you can speak to. But the reality is that how do kids get devices in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Parents buy them.
Yep.
Most kids don't go and save up their money and buy these things because it takes months and months to do that, given the price of most of these items.
Yep.
The reality is parents enable the kids to use these devices. If we can be bothered paying $500 or $1,000 for a device, but we don't want to spend the time taking the time to actually think about how these could be used, how they could be exploited. Our children could be exploited through these devices.
Yep.
Then who ultimately is at fault here? We've got to assume responsibility for this. And it's a bit like asking your kid to come to the kitchen and help prepare dinner. Are you going to let them use a kitchen knife? Well, at the appropriate age, with the appropriate oversight and direction, your kids can begin to use these tools. We know that a kitchen knife has many practical benefits. It's got
Yep.
utility, but we also know that it could be misused or there could be accidents. So it might seem like a simple analogy, but really it doesn't get any more complicated when it comes to social media. It's a powerful tool which has a lot of practical utility, but it can also be misused, of course, and
Yep.
and kids can be vulnerable. So if we don't understand that this is a graduated process whereby more supervision to begin with and less so as they get older and become more adept in handling this stuff.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we can't just spring it on them at 16. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Kids get to watch their parents drive the car. Yes, we don't let them drive the car before 16, but the whole point is that we're modeling something for them. So I just think parents have got to get a little more hands-on here. They've got to get a little more real about it. And if
Yep.
they can't be bothered doing that or they feel overwhelmed, then just don't buy your kid a device.
Yeah. I mean, it is as simple as that. And honestly, the power in the parents' hands, if you're the one that bought the device, you're the one that can also say, hey, no, you've broken this agreed barrier we put in place. You're losing phone privileges for 24 hours, whatever that looks like. I'm switching off the modem. I'm cancelling your plan. I mean, you've got various disincentives or guardrails that you can put in place as a parent. I know that some parents are a little bit concerned that maybe they're not tech savvy enough, that their kids are smarter on smartphones than they are, and you've probably got a point. But there is also, as you say, there's technology, there's advice, there's tools that we can put in place, there's accountability software, etc. And honestly, when we think, oh gosh, this seems complicated, what are the consequences of your children not being safe on the internet? That's worth investing some time and energy into, right?
Yeah. And I think, look, I'm not expecting everyone to be a tech genius. I mean, I don't claim to be one at all. I'm very much a novice still. But if I'm going to be a parent, I'm going to have actually more complicated, more challenging decisions to make as a parent on behalf of my children, compared with this issue?
Yeah.
And I think we've got to be realistic about that. There are all sorts of things we have to navigate as parents. This is about doing your homework. And if you don't feel that you have the mastery of this issue, that's okay, because there are other people that can help you.
Yeah.
So look for the help, look for the resources. Our organization, we always point people to appropriate places. And I think we've got to come back to this fact that digital technology has become ubiquitous. It's become a feature of our world, and it ain't going away.
Yeah.
It may be replaced by the next sort of, development in tech, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, it's become indispensable in daily life.
Yeah.
And yes, there are problems with addiction, and there are all kinds of dangers that are available or accessible. But we're going to have to figure out how to live with it, and we can't just be, sort of technophobic and running away from it all. You can do that for a certain amount of time, but eventually your kids will get to the point where they have to use it.
Yeah.
You can't even go to the shopping mall now without having apps, that allow you to do certain things.
Yeah.
So this is just a fact. Banning smartphones, banning social media, it's just a moral panic. It's an impulse, and I get the reason behind it, but it won't do what people think it's going to achieve. And Australia's showing that.
And now I love your analogy there. We can't be banning kitchen knives in case somebody cuts themselves, And just finally on this one, though, because there have been, this has been battered back and forth by the current coalition as, hey, this is something we must do, and they have been looking to Australia and other parts of the world for what they are doing. Is there a political champion of this idea? The research is in Australia. This idea of parents as first line of defence when it comes to children's online safety, is the political will to back this for the government to invest in parents to be equipped rather than doing the Big Brother approach?
Well, yeah, I mean, two things to say. First of all, the resources that have been kind of dedicated or funneled towards educators, people who are out there trying to help parents be equipped, has actually dropped off in some cases.
Okay.
Because there's been this anticipation, oh, well, the law's going to solve all our problems and we won't need education anymore.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty daft if you think about it.
Yeah.
And then secondly, the challenges that they're seeing in Australia, a lot of it, I guess a lot of this desire that parents have is to see kind of us return to 1985. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kids out in the streets riding their bikes. You can still do that if you're an active, hands-on parent.
Yeah.
And you can have, simple measures in place. So why we look to the government to answer all of our problems when in fact we can see it's not working.
Yeah.
It's beyond me. I don't get it. And I think people are just feeling helpless. But the only real way out of this problem is to get more involved and be more educated about it.
And hey, for the parents to be involved, but also calling for a political champion to say, hey, let's put parents on the front line of defence here rather than going to over-regulation, over-control.
Well, because parents are going to be the ones who have to enforce a law, even if it got passed.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
So it's just a circular bit of reasoning, and I think why do that? Let's just go straight to encouraging parents to do the right thing.
Hey, Nick, really appreciate the work that you do at pillapillanz.org, of course, for more information on that. Thanks for being on the program once again.
Thanks, Andrew.